Israel's military announces a strike on Hamas leadership. The IDF says the targets were heavily involved in the attacks on civilians on October 7th. NTD's international correspondent, Arian Pasdar, has the latest.
Israel's military on Tuesday posting this announcement saying the IDF and the ISA conducted a precise strike targeting the senior leadership of the Hamas terrorist organization. Prior to the strike, measures were taken in order to mitigate harm to civilians. The announcement didn't say where the strike took place, but an explosion was heard in Doha, the capital of Qatar.
The state of the Qatar condemns in the strongest wording the cowardly Israeli attack that targeted residential buildings.
Israel's military says these members of the Hamas leadership have led the terrorist organization's operations, are directly responsible for the brutal October 7th massacre. The head of the United Nations condemns the attack.
I condemn this flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Qatar.
Reports say the targeted individual was representing Qatar in the ceasefire negotiations. The UN criticizes the move, which it says hinders peace efforts. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
The White House read a statement following Israel's strike against Hamas in Doha, Qatar. Here's Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt earlier today.
This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal.
The White House says President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to inform Qatar of the impending attack, which he did. Leavitt says Trump views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of the attack.
President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
The White House again stresses that Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and the war to end immediately. Leavitt says Trump has always made it very clear to the world that he wants peace in the Middle East quickly. The White House says the president is working with all U.S. allies to the region to get the job done. And joining us now to discuss the latest developments in the Israel-Hamas conflict is David Wormser, Middle East Affairs Analyst at the Center for Security Policy and former Senior Advisor to Vice President Cheney on the Middle East and Strategic Affairs. So, David, how significant is this targeting of the senior leadership of the Hamas terrorist organization, and what is the impact of this having, being located in Qatar, in Doha?
Well, a very good question with lots of parts. Significant, it's very significant. It shows the Israelis now are giving no quarter to anybody that's a member of Hamas and is now after destruction of the Hamas structure in its entirety everywhere. The second thing is there's strategic implications in that that Israel either overflew Iran or overflew Saudi Arabia to get there. It was conventional aircraft that did the attack. So either Saudi Arabia allowed Israel or the Iranians couldn't see Israel, one or the other. And of course, for the United States, it's a very touchy thing. And I think the reactions suggest all that. But strategically, it shows Israel has made the decision and is acting on the basis of utter destruction, physical destruction of Hamas's leadership and structure.
Do you think this is going to change the relationship between Qatar and Israel?
Yes, it will. Qatar obviously was already for the Israelis. Qatar was a hostile country. It was funding Hamas. It had torpedoed and sabotaged negotiations over the release of hostages. The Israelis caught the Qataris pressing Hamas not to agree to one of the ceasefire agreements that would have released hostages. And Hamas funds tremendous amounts of anti-Semitism globally and anti-Israeli activity globally. So for the Israelis, they're already in a hostile state, but this makes it now more overt. So clearly there is a shift there.
What do you think about the international reaction on what Israel did?
Well, I think a lot of it's perfunctory because I think a lot of countries actually supported the attack. Saudi Arabia, the UAE are in very bad relations with Qatar. They don't like what Qatar is doing. They don't particularly want this war to continue in Gaza, and they see Qatar as giving Hamas constantly a lifeline to allow it to continue. So I think they're actually happy, though perfunctorily they have to condemn it. The United States was a very interesting reaction because it's kind of it contradicts itself. On one side, this is unfortunate, this is sad, this is not right. On the other side, Trump says this will advance peace, could be an opportunity to advance peace, which is obviously what we all want. So it's almost as if we're trying to have Qatar calm Qatar down and say, listen, we don't want this to happen again. We're not happy it happened, but it was necessary because Hamas wasn't negotiating in good faith. Other countries like Egypt, Europe, it'll be perfunctory again. They can't do much about it. Egypt may even be happy because it leaves only Egypt as the mediator. And Qatar, though, is moving more toward amicable relations with Egypt, although there have been tensions in the past.
How close would you say, David, is Israel currently, how close is it in eradicating Hamas?
Well, it's very close. I mean, this leadership is significant. There is really not much left. There is the top leader, Khalid Mashal, but there's really not much left of Hamas's leadership abroad. And inside Gaza, Israel's, I think part of this all was part of the effort to go into Gaza City, which the Israelis are preparing the ground for that by taking down the tall buildings that are observation and operational centers. And so I think they're about to take the rest of Gaza City, leaving only the central camps left, of refugee camps left, where they will either circle around or they hope that Hamas's remnants will surrender at that point. So Israel's getting close. They may be a month or two away, maybe 3, from wrapping this up.
So then what about the hostages? What are the chances that the hostages will be returned, all of them, including the deceased ones, their bodies?
No, this is a gamble. I mean, Hamas was given an ultimatum basically on Friday by the President of the United States and Israel, which is, okay, the Israelis are still willing to give up a lot to get back the hostages, but all have to come home on day 1 of an agreement and ceasefire. And Hamas rejected that. So that, and President Trump warned Hamas, if you reject it, there will be, quote, hell to pay. And that indeed is what we saw happen a few hours ago. As far as the lives of the hostages, I think the Israelis had concluded Hamas is not negotiating in good faith. They will not be able to get all their hostages back by negotiations, if any hostages back by negotiations. So the Israelis are taking a gamble. They're not sure how this plays out, but they hope that as Hamas is ripped to pieces, both as a structure externally and internally, that some of the hostage holders will see this as a lost cause and begin to concede and try to save themselves by turning over hostages to the Israelis and running for their lives under Israeli protection. And then hopefully some of the hostages can get out that way. Eventually, all the hostages will come home when the Israelis take the rest of Gaza. But the question is how many will still be alive? And that's the gamble that Israel's taking. It decided that negotiations will are no longer able to free the hostages.
Okay, just one last question, David. If Hamas is being very close to being eradicated, does that mean perhaps it's thinking that it's got nothing to lose now? If that's the case, then why would it listen to any party?
Well, the Israelis are hoping that some of the hostage holders who are part of the Hamas structure, but will act as individuals and save themselves, that might be the ones who listen now, because now they know the Israelis are coming. and they know the Israelis will be over their heads soon. So until now, there was a sense that Israel may be bluffing, they may not go all the way, and so forth. Now, Hamas leadership, these are true believers in jihad, and they look at martyrdom not the way I would, which is, one should give one's life for one country, and yes, but this is virtual suicide at this point without any real long-term gain. Although in their minds it is, but we're dealing with true believers, and true believers, they will go all the way, and that's apparently what Hamas's leadership is. But again, hopefully some of the hostage holders are not that, and that they'll make the decision to save themselves.
Okay, well, David, always great to hear your insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.